Our guest today is a drainage engineer, and he's called Warren. Welcome, a fucking dickhead. That is not the welcome.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Welcome, Warren.
Thank you.
Take fucking two. Welcome, Warren. Oh, God, I fucked it. Warren, how are you? Great to see you.
Very good. Yeah, lovely day today. Great to be here.
You're a listener, are you?
I am a listener, yeah.
Right, I am going to read out the quote on your application to come on the show. And it is, "My job is often perceived as boring,
Yep.
but I'd love the opportunity to say why it's not." And then usually me, Tom and Steve have a bit of a chat before the show. Any questions? It usually involves Steve asking, right, what questions we got for our guests coming on this week. I'll probably not respond because I'm really busy doing something.
Yeah.
And I know that hopefully I'll just be engorged with...
Wing it? Is that
Wing
right?
it, yeah.
Wing it,
Maybe
wing it.
just gone with wing it.
Yeah.
And Tom will come with like an A4 sheet of thing.
Yeah.
But I did make some notes on the drainage engineer one, and it's in response to your quote. "You are going to have to work very hard to convince me otherwise on this one, ...
Okay.
Now, that's a semi-aggressive start to any guest we've had on here, isn't it, Tom?
Take the semi out of it, it's just aggressive, yeah.
Oh, was it? Sorry. Drainage engineer.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
So,
What is a drainage engineer?
So I design and build drainage systems. Well, I don't actually build it. I design them. I produce drawings. I produce design specifications, approvals, and somebody goes and build it. So you'll take any development. You want to build. You got a bit of land. You want to build a house on. You come to me and you go, right, I've got an architect. Here's what it's going to look like. Here's where it's going to go. How do I drain it? And some people don't even think about it, and you go, actually.
I was just about to say, what does it matter?
Because, it does matter.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Where's it going to go? Everyone.
I wouldn't even thought of that. I wouldn't even have gone.
So it's like one of those, you go through these stages, you buy a bit of land. It's about doing your due diligence. So someone employs me to go, right, Warren, can you make sure it's drained? Of course I can. Right, what do? I get in contact with the local water authority. I have a look at ground investigation reports, look at the drawings, look at anything and everything I can find, and go, right, that's how you're going to do it. And sometimes there's been times when I've not been able to drain a site because it's just not worked. And they go, well, you're the engineer. Find me a solution. And sometimes there's not always a solution. There should be. Not 99% of the time there is a solution, but sometimes the odd one or two, you're buggered.
So specifically, the definition of a drainage engineer is to navigate or design the navigation system of how my turd leaves the toilet from my house, under my house. Does it go under my house?
We'll go under your house,
in the garden,
maybe,
and then connect to then just fuck off. So you're basically designing like a highway for shit.
Do you know what? I've never heard it like that. It's fucking brilliant, that is. Yeah, a highway for shit.
So you do like regularly, you're designing the M25 under people's houses for their turds.
Yeah.
Left, right, and
essentially, centre. How big's that? Because how many shits are you going to do? So that's how big the pipe's going to be.
Well, let's straight away. I'd like to know more here.
I'd love that. That's definitely one of your questions. You go in to talk to your client. You go, excuse me, sir, just a couple of queries here. What site? How many bedrooms do you have? Okay, yeah. How many people are in the property? Yeah, okay. 6 options. Oh, okay. Children, adults, okay. How regular are your movements? Pardon? How regular are your movements, sir? What do you mean by movements? Like back in how many turds are you taking a day? And at what size are you walking away from? Please tell me they're the questions you ask.
I would love to say yes. But no, I can't ask those questions. I'd be sacked on the spot. But those things you talk about, how many bathrooms have you got? How many people live in your house? From that, I'm not going to determine how many shits you're going to do, but I could determine how many litres of water that property is going to use during one day, and then you could calculate. Okay, say that's one property, but there's 100 neighbours, so you've got to add them all up, and then that's how big your pipe's going to be. And it's surprisingly not as big as you'd think for something that small. 100 houses is not a huge development.
Just if you can indicate with your hands,
Yeah.
Warren, and we'll try and describe the shape that you're making, the aperture of a pipe for not only Joe's turds, but for 100 neighbours of Joe.
100 neighbours of Joe, about that.
So you're basically putting
That's
your
not
four
big.
fingers.
About 150 millimetres.
So you basically you put your two thumbs together and your four fingers,
Yeah.
and you made a circle. I mean, Joe, when we're talking about your own pipes,
I'll be honest, mate. That shape of your hand you're making is quite often the size of my noose when I am there. So fucking hell, you've got some design work going on if you're around my place. Why? Is my next question. What made you go? Yeah, I want to get in the drains
really
here.
Good question. I think it's more. It just happened. So essentially, I joined a company as a technician. So I did a lot of drawing work, and they paid for me to go to university. So I studied structural and civil engineering. The company I worked for had a team of structural engineers, a team of civil engineers. A civil engineer is a drainage engineer. It's just the way we call it. But to be specific, drainage is what I focus on. I can also design highways, actual highways.
not
and
just
things
shit
like that.
highways.
Not the shit highways, proper highways or roads.
The M25 of poo.
So, and what happened was, for the first year, so it's basically like I did an apprenticeship. Rather than being a carpenter, I was becoming an engineer. So I did an apprenticeship type thing, and we went, every 6 months we changed teams. So I got a little bit of experience in one bit, a little experience in the next bit. And then I think what happened was what I'm going to call him, my mentor at the time, he said, right, civil engineering, drainage, it's easy. He said, one, it's buried, and two, as long as it flows downhill, you're all right. So I went, yeah, that sounds easy. It's better than structural engineering. Let's do that then. And it's just literally, that was 17 years ago, and I'm now stuck with it.
So,
But I'm not saying, sorry, it's not that I don't enjoy it. It's just it's a job. Everyone has their days when the jobs are absolutely terrible. Even if you're a rugby player, a sports broadcaster, a podcaster, whatever, you all have your days. But actually, it pays for everything I've got.
Means to an end.
Means to an end. Yeah, it's a job, but I'm good at it as well. Sounds really perverse, I suppose. Good at clearing shit, but.
So I imagine you have designed an aperture for a number of turds. Warren.
Twice. Sorry. Just.
What's that?
Can I borrow your pen quick?
What aperture?
Just yeah.
All right, openings, holes.
No, I'm just going to make a note from now on.
How many apertures am I allowed?
No. I just want to make note for every podcast me and you ever record together. How many times you use a word that I don't know what it means? So there you go.
Okay.
Twice you've used apertures.
Okay.
Apertures. Apertures.
I don't think I'd ever use that word, aperture. I know I've used apertures as a specification document. I just call it a pipe.
Okay, so you both slapped me down for my aperture, and I will call it a pipe from now on. Warren, you have designed a number of pipes for shits, but I imagine the shits are the things you know about. What other things do people stick down their drains which make your life hell?
I'll throw it back to you two. What do you think people have put down drains?
Right. I'm just trying
Think
to
of
go
something
through some of my own
out of this
history.
world. What do you think?
So there's been a couple of times, personal experience where I've come unstuck, a couple of condoms, but I thought the trick would be to wrap them in toilet roll first.
To make them even blockier.
No, to make them sink more.
But
My semen's not too dense. It's quite fluffy.
Light, is it?
It's quite a light, fluffy.
Like a souffle.
It's like, yes, perfectly. I have been complimented before that my semen is very meringue.
Oh, really? Like a nice...
I have been complimented on my semen before, saying that it's very meringue-like.
Is it crispy on the outside, a little bit chewy on the inside?
No, as in before it's been baked.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I've never actually baked my cum, funnily enough, Tom.
Well, do that later and let us know. We'll stick it on the socials.
Condoms.
Condoms, tampons,
baby wipes. They
Definitely
always say
baby
don't
wipes.
put baby
Baby
wipes.
wipes,
That
definitely,
fucking blocks it down. Have you shoved any weird shit? A goldfish.
Goldfish, people doing that,
Mind you, they fit
Swim to
nicely
freedom,
down the apertures.
So there is some weirder stuff. A mobile phone. Someone's dropped it down the toilet, forgotten it. You sit down, flushed it, it's gone.
Yeah.
It gets stuck somewhere, someone picks it out, it's gone. A wallet. Don't know what it's trying to get rid of.
Okay, yeah.
Drugs?
Well, I have, potentially, yes. Depends where you live. But yeah, drugs. Nappies. A whole nappy.
A whole nappy?
A whole nappy, yeah.
When has that ever been play on? That's never been play on. I could understand someone like, tampon occasion, and then go, no, it blocks it. Okay, stop. Put that in the bin now.
Yeah.
I could understand baby wipes because you're like, well, it's the same.
It's the same thing, yeah.
Okay, no, put that in the bin. They're fine. But when has it ever been play on? You put a whole fucking shitty nappy. You go, yeah, that would definitely work.
No idea. Absolutely no idea. People are stupid. Most people. It's good. People think you can be, can't you? It's like, well, why would you put that there? It's essentially your thing about your condom. You wrapped it in tissue. The whole point we used to put tissue down the toilet rather than a baby wipe is that it disintegrates. So it won't. Once it hits the water, it disappears, and it into tiny little things. So the condom's still there. Okay. Basically, biodegradable stuff, non-biodegradable stuff, causes the issues. Plastics, things like that.
What sort of weird stuff have you shoved down toilets, Tom?
Well, this isn't a weird one, although I will come to a weird one, Joe, but I've recently started using, because I'm fully aware, as everyone is, that you cannot put baby wipes down a toilet, etc., etc. There I was, Joe, going down that particular aisle of the supermarket recently where I saw something was branded as flushable wipes, and I thought, well, hang on, there's no such thing, is there? It claimed,
Andrex?
Warren, it may be Andrex, actually.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It claimed that they are flushable,
but
they seem to be in every other way, Warren, exactly the same as baby wipes. Have I been conned, or are these safe?
I think the early stages of flushable baby wipes, they just said it was flushable because it was not quite as baby, it was not as much plastic, so it would disintegrate, a bit lighter maybe. But there is now, and if you look at your packet when you get home, look at that packet. Has it got a little symbol that's got free to? I think it was called. Basically, there's a certification that says this is flushable. So yes, as long as it's got that certification, it's flushable. However, I wouldn't put it down the toilet because it's still plastic going into a drain. It's not it's not good for the environment. Put it in a bin, let it go to. It's going to go to landfill. You put it in a drain, it could end up in the sea. It could end up in the river. Yeah.
What do you mean ends up in the sea?
So
does all shit flow to the sea?
Well, all shit flows downhill, and most of the sea's normally downhill. Most rivers are downhill. Yeah. No, essentially,
it's not many uphill rivers. It's true.
No, not everything ends up at sea. But what happens is, especially in the likes of London, you've got this old Victorian sewer system, that flows big, massive, brick-built pipes, apertures. Everyone, they're bigger than this.
Stick him on the list.
Yeah.
And it can only take so much, and it's all combined with surface water, foul water. It's got to flow somewhere. When it's a really heavy storm, that pipe fills up, and it overflows into the Thames.
Oh.
50. Apparently, according to Thames Water's website, 50 times a year at the moment, the drains next to the Thames overflow into it 50 times a year, releasing raw sewage into the Thames, straight into the Thames.
Oh. Well, it's the last time I go for a dip in the Thames.
They are doing something about that, in the fact that they're building a big super sewer. They're calling it
a super sewer.
A super sewer. So this
super sewer. So, why do I think of what's that song?
Go.
ABBA. Super sewer, going picking up your shit. Da, 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 ba, 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 ba. Is that the song?
Super Trooper, yeah.
Super Pooper.
Pooper Super.
Sorry, Warren.
That's fine. I like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's they're classified as a super sewer. It's called the Thames Tideway Tunnel. It's essentially 15 miles long. It's the width of, I think, 3 or 4 London buses.
Oh, you get heaps of shit down there.
Yeah. And it's being bored underneath the River Thames. It's finished, or it's not quite operational, but I know that all the tunnelling is finished. And what that will do is intercept all the flows and take it straight to a treatment centre. So rather than having 50 times a year the water going into the Thames, it turned into maybe 2 or 3 times, depending on when it rains.
This is huge news.
Talk to me. Fatberg.
Fatberg,
a few years ago,
yeah.
I heard about this fucking giant fatberg.
Yeah.
Was it in London?
Yes, it was London. So it's underneath Whitechapel. It was 250 metres long.
Oh, that's That is massive.
Yeah, and I think it weighed 30 to 40 tons. They estimated it.
And that was just flowing through.
No, it wasn't flowing. It was just stuck. The whole point of the fatberg is that basically you've got all down the toilet. You've got your grease, oils from cooking, everything gets congealed in baby wipes or the non-biodegradable things you put down the toilet.
Yeah,
and it just created like a concrete type structure essentially down. Obviously a big Victorian type sewer or a big pipe, and it just clogged there. You only know there's a problem with that because everything's buried. You only know there's a problem when it starts to creep up to the surface, and you think, "Oh, something's happening here."
So it's like a proper blockage. By the time it's gotten to the surface, you're like, "Oh no!"
Yeah, and I'm pretty certain they to get rid of it. There were teams of men down there, probably with a jackhammer, trying to get this fall through. I think that interesting. I did read as I was, because I knew we were going to get asked about fatberg, so I thought I'd have a bit of a read about that one in Whitechapel. I'm pretty certain they put a piece of it in the British Museum.
They put some shitty, oily, nappy / baby wipes in the British Museum.
Yeah, but surely there was these fatbergs. That wasn't the only one. They must happen quite regularly.
They're quite regular. But that was the biggest they found.
That must be quite impressive.
Would you go down? How much would you need to be paid to go down there? Let's say it's too far away for a jackhammer. So the job, Joe, is you've got to go down the Victorian sewer, and you've got a hammer and a chisel.
Yeah.
You've got to do 8 hours a day. How much?
Well, I'll do it today if you want, for free.
Would you?
No issues whatsoever. I would go down there wanting to see it as like, fuck, this is quite impressive. And I'd have no qualms about the smell. I've got no issues with that. Like, fucking hell, some of the shit I walk away from. I've got no issues with that. I've told you this before. I'm fine with blood, pus, poo, wee, everything. The only thing I'm not fine with is breast milk. Weirds me out.
It's quite a lot to unpack there. If Joe were to go down the sewer, Warren, what sort of protective clothing would he be given?
I would imagine it'd have breathing apparatus on. One, because you've got to think about the gas down there. It's not just the smell. You've got the release of gas. It's quite dangerous. You could faint. So you'd have a quick breathing apparatus.
Yeah.
I would have thought you'd have some type of overalls on with gloves, just to protect.
What, like Oshkosh?
Maybe, yeah.
Oshkosh dungarees. Not quite.
Yeah. You'd have to pass all your qualifications. You'd have to have confined space.
Hang on a minute.
Qualifications.
I've got to do all this. I've just said I'll do it for free. Christ almighty, this is harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, but what if you fainted down there? No one knew you were down there. Actually, you fainted. You never came back.
I think
someone's going to want to sue somebody, aren't they?
I would go down there out of pure interest and fascination.
I think I would too. I'd love to. Obviously, I haven't been down anything like that, but I'd love to go and see it just because it's just like it's interesting.
What is the biggest blockage you've ever seen on?
For me, because I don't deal with the super sewers, the big pipes. It's normally quite small. The biggest blockage is normally a nappy. And like we said, but it's like something stupid. It's massive. It's going to fill the whole pipe up. You know, things like people say, "Oh yeah, I've just dropped a big turd. That's going to block the sewer." It's not, because it mixes with all the water and it congeals. It creates the liquid. It's the stuff that doesn't disintegrate. It just congeals up and up and up. It's horrible.
What if it's a very starchy shit? So Joe, what was your heaviest one you've ever done? Have you ever done one? Maybe one of the ones at Clackett Lane Services, where you've
Trap 4
at Clackett Lane, where you thought, crikey, that flush is going to struggle with that.
To be honest, I don't ever worry about the one. I don't actually worry about what comes out, because it's never really a huge tidy sum. My issue is the sloppier ones that require more wipes. And then I start panicking. When I'm on like my 4th or 5th wipe, I'm like, fuck, I'm really going to stop. I'm going to have to stop doubling up here now. I'm going to have to go to single layers. And when you get to single layers, that's where it's scary.
Risky, innit?
Really risky, because then just next thing you know, you're like, oh, okay, this has turned into something that I didn't expect it to be.
Would you ever treat yourself with a baby wipe?
No, mate.
You telling me with your 4 kids?
No, I have. I was run out of bog roll. So
it's a necessity.
It's more of a necessity, and then it's even worse, because it stays wet.
Oh, you didn't like it?
I hate it, mate. Even though you're probably the cleanest you've ever been, you then walk away from it and your cheeks are just so moist and just gliding over each other. I'm then like, I have to get in the shower here. This is awful.
Get it even wetter.
A good point. But at least it's cleaner and it's fast flowing rather than just hot and sticky in my pants. Didn't think that was going to go there.
Well, things like that. But this morning, my youngest son, Dad, the toilet's blocked. I was like, okay, what's wrong? They'd used too much tissue. The same sort of thing, probably a runny feces, and they've gone, right, I've used too much tissue, it's blocked the toilet.
Can I just say that I'm so glad you used the word feces when we've been liberally using the word shit and turd for the last...
Runny feces. Brilliant, yeah.
Yeah, and I said, what do you want me to do about it? And he went, well, sort it out, Dad. I said,
your job.
Sort it out, Dad. You did it. You can sort it out. You're the drainage engineer, Dad.
You need to design the route.
Yeah, okay, son. Let me just try and do that. Okay, it's gone.
But
that's it. I don't get. I'm not fussed by that. I've put my head down. So many manhole covers, looked at things like that. That you don't. I'm not bothered by anything like that. It just over my head, essentially.
Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you're like, I'm just trying to picture, you've been called out to a job and someone's whole front garden or back garden is literally caked in shit, or the drainage is just exposed?
I haven't seen it, but I know it's happened. Recently, I've just been involved in a scheme where it's in the middle of a farm. It's just a couple of houses, and there's no mains drainage at all. So essentially, they've got a big pit in the ground, a cesspool.
Shit bucket.
Basically, yeah. Everything flows into it.
Hang on, a cesspool?
Cesspool, it's called, yeah.
Well, I don't understand these.
No,
finish your story and then we'll get on to cesspools.
So, yeah, okay. So they use a cesspool, it fills up. The problem they've got is this house is in a flood zone. So when it rains, it floods. And this thing, it comes up, it bubbles up. It's old, it needs replacing, and water comes through the sides, fills it up, and he's there with a bucket, getting rid of all the shit from his garden. That was a story he told me anyway. So what we're doing, we're fixing that. We're getting rid of that cesspool, and I'm actually putting in a new treatment plant, just a small one.
Nice.
And it will outfall into a river because it's being treated, so you can outfall it back into the water.
So that's okay to do?
That's okay to do, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So go on, let's go, Joe. What were you sort of won't let's go back to cesspool.
Oh yeah, what is this? So I see these people that have got like fuck off big tanks or something buried at the end of their garden or something like that, and I'm like, well, why? Why are you storing your shit at the bottom of your garden?
So what there is there's a hierarchy for foul drain. Hierarchy of what you can do. First, you want to go to a main sewer. You've got to get to a main sewer. If you can't do that, what's your next thing? Right, you've got to do something with it. You put it in a septic tank. So what that septic tank is it separates the solids from the liquids. So the solids, all the sludge goes to the bottom. The liquid comes up and it overflows, and it goes into a soakaway into the ground. Done.
So all the piss just soaks into the ground?
Yes.
Long term, is that good for the ground?
No, it's fine. It's
fine
because if say the ground is really permeable, so it soaks away too fast, you can't use a septic tank because it won't treat the water. The treatment of the water is through the layers in the soil, through natural means all the way through. It gets back into the water table that way. So the ground has to be have a certain permeability, I'm going to say, to make it work. And then if you can't use one of those, you can't do that. You've got a cesspool, which is basically a big hole in the ground, big tank. It all goes in there, and every 2-3 months
someone comes
and tankers it away. Yep.
What ones? So that's the least efficient, is it? That's
like the bottom of the hierarchy.
Yeah, but that sounds quite
simple.
Well, yeah, that kind of sounds.
It's
an
old.
Option.
Yeah.
And it tends to be, I would imagine, a lot of rich people in big houses in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Actually rely on
Definitely.
having a cesspit or one of those tanks because they're far away from.
They're too far. Yeah.
So technically, you say that's a hierarchy of thing, but if you've got a cesspit like that, you're probably going to be a gazillionaire.
Yes, it costs a lot of money to get someone to come and empty it. But in places in Scotland, the use of a cesspool or cesspit is banned. You can't do it at all. You can in England and Wales, but in Scotland it's completely banned. It's been banned for a number of years now.
Did they have a bad run of shit pods, did they?
I think they must have done. They must have overflowed. I don't know the answer, but you can imagine it's so disgusting. When it goes wrong, where's it going to go?
Right, we need a little break, and in the break I want you to have a think about the worst drainage blockage thing you've done, because knowing your rave period in your life, there's definitely something that's happened there. All right, so let's have some ads.
Okay, those were the ads. Joe, you asked me before the ads for a shit blocking story, and you mentioned the rave days. I'm going to twist that ever so slightly and tell you a story, Warren, that happened when I went to Glastonbury in 1998. It was a very, very wet year, and the dance tent was one of the few places you could stay dry. So everyone was in the dance tent. The already sodden ground got wetter and wetter. All the water flowed into the dance tent until in the middle of the dance tent you were pretty much up to your knees in liquid mud. The quick-thinking organisers thought, we know how to deal with this. So they brought in one of the lorries that sucked the shit out of the... And they got the big tube that they would usually attach to the toilet and told everyone to stand back and then hit the lever to suck it. And unfortunately, they had engaged the wrong lever. So instead of sucking out all the wet mud from the dance tent, liquid shit was sprayed around the entire dance tent.
And I'm guessing a high number of people in that dance tent were probably... but rather than aperture for pipes, I'm thinking a posh word, but I can't be fucked, so we'll just go, we're probably off their tits. They were quite happy to just plough on through, were they?
Shit everywhere, Joe.
It was just brilliant.
The problem, I think, is, and you I'm sure Warren have first-hand experience of this, is that the smell of shit can linger upon a person. Has that been, in your day job, an issue at all?
Well, there was one instance in my young sort of start of my career. I was dealing with a development in a farm, and there was no drainage around, no mains drainage, and we were just trying to, how are we going to take this? They want to put a car park in. How are we going to get all the surface water and put it somewhere? And right next to the car park, they've got what's called a slurry pit. So slurry is basically animal waste. Anything they can do, they stick it into a pit, a hole, anything, leave it there to ferment, and then use it for spraying the field during the summer months or whatever.
Yeah, the circle of life.
Essentially. Yeah. So they said, that's fine. I said, I'm going to do this. And they went, yep, that's fine. However, this slurry pit leaks. I said, okay, right, well, empty it. And I'll go and have a look around and see if I can find the leak. So I came back sort of a week later. They'd emptied the whole thing out, and I walked into it. I had boots. I had sort of like overalls and stuff on. It wasn't it was a big open thing. It wasn't like buried, so I could just go into it. I walked in, and I found the leak because it was a big hole in the concrete slab, and I fell into it. Yeah. I fell, and I was literally knee deep in shit.
Good. Really good. I like it when you have the ability to actually say those common sayings.
It's actually
and
true.
It's actually true, yeah.
Yeah, I was knee deep in it, and when you're during these months when the farmers are spraying the field, you can smell it. It's that smell, and it lingered for probably 2 or 3 weeks.
On you?
On me. So what I had to do is
Was this recently?
No, this was. We were talking 10 years ago.
You're sniffing then, Joe.
Are you sure it wasn't recently, Tom? I know
that's
it's
me.
warm
Sorry.
in here.
Yeah, it's me.
Well, I do deal with it all the day. I don't know. I didn't unblock the toilet this morning, so maybe it's still lingering on me. So 3 weeks. So basically, what happened was the farmer came down and said, "Oh, I forgot about the hole in the slab." Yeah, thank you. Anyway, I said, "Have you got a hose? Can you just hose me down, please? Just get rid of it all." I literally drove home in my pants. Because I was wearing trousers because I was in office attire. Why the hell I was in office attire, I don't remember why, but I was. So my trousers were ruined. I had to just chuck them in the bin. I literally chucked them. I was like, "You take them away." And I drove home in my pants. And the funniest thing is that the boots I was wearing, to this day, I've still got them. I continue to use
as like a...
They're safety boots. They're
right.
So like
I thought
safety
you'd
boots.
kept them as like some
memento.
sort of memento. See, this was the day where that old saying, being knee deep in shit actually came true for me. So I've christened them, and they're put in your cupboard.
It was. I don't know why. I suppose it's just me being a cheapskate, to be honest. I never got rid of them. I didn't want to buy £80 on a new pair, even though the company would have paid for them because they have to. I don't know why, but I have replaced them recently, and you could still, on the laces, you could still smell that. It's not as bad. It's still lingering there. So I always made sure, especially this is pre-COVID, having hand sanitizer in the car, because I'd put those boots on and
When you get home, what's your go-to routine? What's your go-to shower gel that you go, this is what's going to do me today?
Shower gel? I don't use soap. I use soap. Dove soap.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Straight Dove soap.
Straight Dove. On my hair. I've got no hair, obviously. So straight everywhere. I just use it. It's simple. It's easy.
Presumably you go home first before going for after-work drinks. It's not like a convention.
Well, you would for that,
all right, lads, let's all go for
that.
some drinks, shall we? If we all smell the same, we'll be all right, shall we?
Well, the fact is, I don't work day to day in those conditions. I'm basically, not 90% of my time is spent in an office or at home in an office. So I'm actually in front of a computer doing the drawings. It's only the odd occasion that I go out and have a look at stuff. So it's crazy. But yeah, that lingered for a good 2-3 weeks.
What city has got the best drainage system?
That's a really difficult question. What city's got the greatest
drainage system?
Well, the earliest drainage system built, as you probably guess, is by the Romans in Rome, and they literally named it the greatest drain. So I'm going to say Rome, given it's so old. In the 6th century BC, they built a section of sewer, and they named it. I'm not going to try and pronounce the Italian version. Something Maxima.
It would be nice, and they named it.
Apertura Maxima.
Something like that.
Pipio de Maxia.
Pipio Scitio Maximo.
Pipio Pui Seminal Fluidio.
So I'm going to say that only because one, it's one of the oldest drainage systems, and they actually had the balls to name it great.
That's
because
fair.
they thought, I looked around and go,
surely London's pretty good, no?
From an engineering point of view, London, the Victorian London sewers that they built is absolutely fantastic. They're still being used today, 150 years later. This is half the reason why we've got the issues with pouring into the Thames, is because it's so old. So that drainage system was, at its time, a piece of marvellous engineering by a brilliant civil engineer, Joseph. I'm going to say it. Bazalgette. That's it.
Bazalgette.
Bazalgette.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And he's known for making that system, is he?
He basically he was involved in the design and construction of the Victorian sewer system. So what happened 150 years ago, 1858, you must have heard of the Great Stink, the Great Stink.
What the fuck's a Great Stink?
It's daily reality for you, isn't it, Joe?
What is the Great Stink, wanker? What's the Great Stink?
So the Great Stink was 1858, the summer of 1858. The water, because obviously all the drains in London all went straight into the Thames. Everyone who lived in London, everything went straight into the Thames. So over years, the Thames became basically a sewer. It stunk, it was disgusting, it smelt, it lingered everywhere. And it got to a point one summer, it was really hot, it was nice and dry, the conditions were perfect, and you couldn't get away from it. The Houses of Parliament had just been built, or had recently been built, so you've got all the MPs sitting there, right next to the Thames, right next to this open sewer. So they're going, they're working in, basically, they can smell the Thames. They can smell it constantly. So it's disgusting. I don't know how bad that smell would have been. If I'm going to put a finger, I'd imagine it would be unbearable.
The fact they called it the Great Stink indicates.
Yeah. So miraculously, from that point, they put some money aside. Actually, we're going to do something about this now, and that's where they start. They built these sewers. Either side of the Thames, there are sewers heading east, all the way to sort of like Barking Way. Basically, they took all the wastewater away from directly in the city of the city of London, and took it east somewhere else and put it into the Thames. There, it still went into the Thames at that point, but it was taken away, and that sewer system is still used. And yeah, Joseph Bazalgette is a one of the sort of iconic civil engineers, if you can have an iconic in my industry, where there's a few.
He would be the one you look up to.
Yeah, it's one that you learn about at university. You learn, if you're interested in drainage, you read about stuff. You can have a read about it. He designed it, he constructed it, and the funny thing is, he tried for years before to get someone to do something about it, but because all the drainage bodies were all separate, a bit like the old underground. You had the Metropolitan line that was controlled by one, rather than one person controlling everything. You had too many bodies, and they wouldn't pay for it. So essentially, the fact that the Thames actually stunk, and that the MPs were sitting there having to smell it all the time, they decided to do something about it.
You get as well, because in certain parts of London, you can still see the pumping stations, can't you?
Yes,
you use. They're quite beautiful buildings sometimes.
You're going to quiz me now on what it's called. It is. I did know it. I can't remember. It's on my phone, so I'll have a look in a minute. But there is a pumping station, and it is an architectural. It's magnificent. You can go and view it. You can go and I've been there. I've had a look at it. It is wonderfully. Well, it's beautiful.
Is it in the East End?
It is in the East End. Yeah.
Your face just said the way it lit up.
Yeah.
On this architecture.
You can't get excited about stuff like that.
But what's it? A pumping station.
A pumping station. Yeah.
You can. Yeah, like the way you went. You can visit it. You can go there and visit it. It's absolutely right. I just love that. There's just.
Well, like the introduction. What did I say? My job is perceived as boring. Go and have a look at that. It's not boring when you actually see something. I know you can't go down these sewers, but they are a marvel of engineering. And I am an engineer. What do engineers do? They solve problems. I love solving problems. Doesn't matter if it's small or big. And it just... So, yeah, I do get enjoyment out of it. Although it sounds mundane, I'm just dealing with a pipe or this. I find it interesting. And especially when you can read about it, go and have a look at it. I'd love to go down the sewers of Paris, just to have a wander around. Why wouldn't you? I'd love to go in the underground, just to walk through a station and abandon underground, stuff like that, because they are marvels of engineering.
Yeah. Here's one, Joe. I think both of us, during the 2019 Rugby World Cup in Japan, both of us enjoyed hugely the Japanese toilet setup.
Oh.
Just talk me through, because most hotels have an electronic toilet setup. Talk me through your favourite buttons to press.
Obviously, there's the heated seat button, which I love. You whack that on straight away. Really
heated
nice.
Seat.
Wow. You get sort of three options, don't you? Three options. Of tepid,
so it's
warm,
perfect
and Scorchio.
Perfect on a winter's morning when you don't really want to sit.
That's
on
it.
Well, just even not in a winter's morning, I just like
Anytime.
sitting on the really hot seat, and then.
It's a bit like when you go after somebody at the service station. Someone's been in there. You sit down. It's nice and warm.
Yeah. So I purposely. My technique in a service station, I'll hover about for a bit.
Yeah.
Outside the cubicles. You'll sort of get an idea of who midway through, or they're about to finish, or they've just sat down. And I'll probably wait for the midway through sort of people, and then wait for them to come out and jump straight in their cubicle, knowing full well that the toilet is lovely and warm.
Yeah.
So that's my technique for the cubicles, just to try and replicate the warmth of the seat. Some people find it disgusting, but I'm all about that. My other buttons on the Japanese toilet would be the cleansing wand.
That sounds interesting.
Well, I would often... you can find me spending at least 15, 20, if not longer, on the toilet these days at home, just for a little bit of peace, a bit of social media.
For sure.
I'm just there for
I think
ages.
we all do that. I certainly do.
Exactly.
Where you got half an hour later? Are you still... Yeah,
I am. It's a big one. It's a fucking big one.
Don't come in.
It might block the fucking drains, this one. And then Warren comes in. No, it won't. Fine. And then, but in Japan, I'd spend at least 45 minutes, sometimes up to an hour, mainly because I really enjoy the wand.
How fierce a wand would you put on?
Really, as fierce as you like.
Crank it up.
Oh, mate. The things that's happened to some of those Japanese wands, I can't even...
Have they? Sorry, Tom. Have they solved the baby wipe problem by
I doubt it.
Cleaning it, or do you still need? It's not cleaning you.
From a lot of my Japanese experience, in terms of recycling and the thousands of things that were in unnecessary packaging,
yes,
I'm pretty sure they don't give a flying fuck whether you're putting baby wipes down the toilet or not.
What I would say, though, because I know the point you're making here, Warren, I think when you first tried it, I went in with quite a gentle wand,
Yeah.
and all that gave you, instead of just having a shitty ass, it gave you a wet shitty ass. But if you stepped up the power of the wand, Joe, I'm looking to you for confirmation of what I'm saying here. It actually was quite effective. It was like a sort of a pressure hose.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Like, like steam cleaning the patio.
It's fantastic.
Did you ever, because you have different aims, Warren, the one will take you in a different direction if you press the man button or the woman button. Did you ever try the woman button?
Both.
It's amazing which areas it hits, isn't it?
It's just incredible. The Biffins Bridge was
sparkling,
wet as a whistle. It was phenomenal. Although that does remind me of the time that I did forget. The last time I was on a Japanese toilet was I'd fallen asleep on it, having been out the second night after the final, and it was about 20 minutes before the bus was leaving for us to fly home. Yeah. But I bash on my door. Coley comes in, and I've like woken up on the toilet, my pants down by my ankles, change everywhere, all the money on the floor. And he's like, "What the fuck, mate? We're going in 20 minutes. We got to go." He's like, shoved all my stuff in the bag, packed it up, given me the clothes that I need to wear for the trip home, and then we've gone. Bear in mind that I had been on the toilet, I'd passed out before finishing, and hadn't had the chance to actually use my wand for the last time. So that, how many hours flight back is it from Japan?
At least 12.
So that 12-hour flight was probably similar to some of the examples that you've spoken about earlier, Warren, in terms of people around me. People avoided me like the plague because I'd forgotten to wipe my arse on that toilet. So my trip back was that. That was unfortunate that I missed out on that Japanese toilet, I'm afraid. I mentioned earlier about the research that goes into these episodes.
Yeah.
And I did have a question, apart from going back to, you're going to have to try fucking hard to convince me otherwise that your job is interesting.
Yeah.
And I will say it now, you have tried
very
hard.
Good.
And you
have tried very hard. Give me that.
And you have converted me. It's been
there,
fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
However, where does the Queen's shit go?
Well, technically, some of it will end up in the Thames. If it's
Are you saying the Queen shits in the Thames?
Are you sure she would let that happen? Surely they've got like a private... The palace has surely got a special...
Like a VIP lane.
A special cesspool.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Maybe.
Mind you, they wouldn't have a cesspool, would they? If the Thames is right next to it, they'd just fuck it off in the Thames.
Well, this is it. So if you think every road you drive on, you walk along past sometimes, there will be a sewer of some description underneath it. For example, in London, there's 64,000 miles of sewers. 64,000 miles, which is ridiculous when you think about it. You laid that end to end and put it around the Earth. It would go around the Earth 2.5 times. Crazy.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What do you mean it goes around the Earth 2.5 times?
Well, the circumference of the Earth is 25,000 kilometres, I think. I can't remember. It's big. And if you put every pipe under London, end to end, it would go around the Earth 2.5 times.
The problem then, Joe, would be that you'd have no pipes under London, so the shit would be everywhere. So,
oh, you're a helmet. Good absolute helmet.
Do you know how much water in London Thames Water deal with every day? Do you want to know? You'll be staggered by this. Go on, have a guess. So every day. So every.
Well, I haven't got a good history on these sort of things.
Every treatment plant there is in the area Thames Water operate, London being one of them. How many litres of water?
Well,
per day.
How many litres of water? At least give me a chance to answer this sensibly.
Yeah.
How many litres of water does it take to flush one poo?
So a typical modern system is about 5 litres.
Right. Okay.
Say 5 to 10 litres.
So if I'm doing that, I do about 4 or 5 poos a day. That's more than normal. So we say 3. How many? What's the population of London?
London, Greater London, maybe 11.
11 million. So 11.
I think Thames Water have 15 million customers in total. That's customers. That's the house, not just number of people. Oh, yeah. But yeah, say 11. Make it easy. Do it as 10 million. I like to keep things easy because you try and do 11 times by another number, I get confused.
I've lost myself, so I'm going to go with 50 million litres of water.
Nowhere near.
What do you mean nowhere near? I'm way off, like way too high.
Too low.
Right, okay, let me have a guess. Having been given a massive steer by you, Warren, there, I'm going to go...
You're a cheater. Why didn't you go first?
Hey, because I'm not stupid. Is it 250 million litres?
Higher.
Is it?
It's 4,600 million litres of
What?
water.
Sorry,
Comes through.
4,600 million
Yeah.
litres of water.
Yeah. Every day.
4,600 million. That's not even a number. 4,600 million. 4,000. Surely it's 46 million.
No.
What? How many millions
Depends
in a billion?
It depends how you define it.
English one, no, the American one is 1,000 million in a billion, and the old-fashioned British one was a million, but now everyone says 1,000 million. Is that right?
Just, yeah. The American version, a billion is 1,000 million, so that's 4.6 billion litres of water.
What? Where's that?
See, I'm saying that now, and I'm thinking, have I actually got that right? Because have I read that wrong?
But
I'm pretty certain I haven't. But you can imagine that's a lot of water. So, you know, I was saying earlier, you asked, right, how do I go to a client? And I go, right, you do so many, you flush your toilet 6 times. I'm going to work out how big your pipe needs to be. Every day, typically in a household, you use per person 200 litres, 150 to 200 litres of water goes down the drains every day.
Wow.
Typically. So that includes sort of washing machines, dishwashers, having a bath, having a shower, going to the toilet. Everything that you do, you need to go down to a foul drain. That's 200 litres, say, of water per person per day.
How could Joe cut down on that usage? So, Joe, like, what things would you consider? Would you ever, let's say one of the kids has done a poo, would you ever consider doing yours on top?
Pardon?
Like, wait till they've gone, but then it's only one flush.
You cannot shit on a shit.
Why?
Oh my God. Mainly because at work, when we had a director of rugby called John Kingston, do you remember a couple of years back? He got up in front of the group one day and he said, right, we're going to have to bloody start with some housekeeping. We're like, right, what's he going to... He did not look happy. So it's bloody unacceptable. It's bloody unacceptable. Right, what's he going to do? I said, we've got Bim who comes in. Bim, he's our cleaner. Bim who comes in, does a bloody sterling job. Every day works his bloody nuts off. He's working his nuts off. And he has to deal with some of the most bloody horrific scenes. Most horrific scenes that I've ever seen in a bloody workplace. And we were like, what the fuck is he going on about? And he was going on about the toilets, the state of the toilets. We've got 3 traps. You imagine with a squad of 50 rugby players, they're quite, used quite a lot. And they were often getting blocked and left. And he just out of nowhere just went, it's bloody unacceptable. You wouldn't bloody shit on a shit at home, so why the bloody hell are you shitting on a shit at work? And the fucking room. And he was deadpan, really serious. You wouldn't bloody shit on a shit at home, so why do it? And that's exactly what's come to mind. No, Tom, I would not shit on a shit at home. I even found it weird when I was younger that we had to share bathwater. I understand trying to cut down on it, but I was like, no, you might as well just fucking pass your dirt on someone else and chuck it over the Reds.
But if you're shitting on a shit, you're not actually getting their shit on you in the example you've given us with the bathwater.
Okay, but what if you're getting splashback from their shit? What if they've done a sloppy shit and it gets splashback and you've got their shit on your butthole?
Just release it slightly more gently. Just ease it into the bowl.
Earlier on in this episode, I told you the diameter of my anus. How can I...
A grapefruit.
Okay, what other ones can I maybe cut down on? I'm not shitting on a shit.
I think it's simple things. Don't have a bath, have a shower. Or don't use a power shower sometimes. The power shower uses sometimes more water than the bath would.
Oh, okay.
Depends how long you're in the shower for.
So hang on. Showers use less water than a bath?
Typically, you should do a very small, not a 5-minute shower, say.
Yeah.
Is less water than a bath.
Okay.
Typically, but
right.
if you're in the shower for 25 minutes, then you're probably better off having a bath.
Oh.
But that's preference, isn't it?
Right. Okay. Any others? I should maybe work on?
Do you run the tap when you brush your teeth? Do you keep the tap running?
No, well, I used to, but my wife doesn't let me.
Simple things like that.
She needs the water to wash her feet.
I'll move us on from that slightly awkward thing. There is a film, Warren, called Alligator, which came out in 1980.
Okay.
And I think it is the story of an alligator which is released into the sewage system as an unwanted pet, which then goes on the rampage.
Yeah.
Is this possible? Could an animal, a wild animal, survive in the sewers?
I'm going to say yes. I think so.
You're basing it on a
Well,
fictional
basically,
film?
I'm basing it on the fact that although it's not an alligator, rats live in the sewers. They're there. They're always there.
They love a sewer, don't they?
They do. So that's an animal. Why couldn't anything else? I'd imagine that rats are easier because they're small. An alligator might struggle through a pipe that big, but yeah, why not?
Why would you put that fear into any of our listeners that the next time they go and sit down for a turd, an alligator might come up and bite them on the arse?
I mean, it's done well to get up the U-bend.
Ah, the classic U-bend.
Yeah.
What about a snake?
Oh, no.
Hopefully not in this country. Why wouldn't a snake? It can get up anything, couldn't it?
Crikey.
I'm not gonna shit comfortably ever again. This is fucking me.
The thing, what you find sometimes in places like London, when I'm talking about rats, you actually on the before it goes into the main sewer, you can put what's called a rat trap. You can put a barrier on, so the rat can't come up into your house.
The shit can escape, but the rat can't.
Yes,
right.
essentially, yeah.
A last question from me is: have you ever come across a customer that's really fucked you off? Like really pissed you off, been rude to you, or in the job that they want doing.
Yeah.
And you've then decided to design their drainage system in the shape of a knob or a cock and balls, just so that they'll never know.
No, but I might now.
They'll never know. Well, there you go. Something to consider. They'll never know, but you will always have that one up on them.
Yeah.
That. You've got my cock and balls underneath your house, and you'll always have that moment of satisfaction knowing that.
I think I might do it now. Future clients, not true, but you know.
Future clients, please be nice to Warren,
me, yeah.
otherwise he's putting his cock and balls under your house.
Yeah, a lot of people annoy me all the time. I'm not going to do something like that. You imagine a lot of the clients I work for are a housing developer rather than an individual. I'm not going to do that until somebody's going to buy this house. I don't think you could do that. But, you know,
I want to know, I need to know that at some point between now and your retirement that you may possibly consider doing a drainage system shaped like a cock and balls, please, Warren.
I will try, Joe.
I will try. That is all I can ask. Try. That is all I can ask.
And it might end up being naturally that way. Who knows? But we could try.
Warren, I'll go back to my first statement where I was semi-passive, very non-semi, very aggressive in terms of your comment of you're going to have to try fucking hard to make your job interesting. And what I love about this show is that we get all sorts on. And the stories that then come off the back of it, you think it's going to go one way, and then it goes another. And I've absolutely loved having you on. It's been brilliant you coming on, so thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed being able to convince you it's not as boring. Do you want a job?
Possibly might need one. Cheers. Thanks, Warren.
No problem. Thanks
Cheers,
a lot.
mate.
Thanks, Tom.
Legend.